Hi, I'm Davy Ward Erickson,
And I'm Alaina Folx.
and you are listening to Sex is Medicine, your number one resource for holistic sex education. Alaina and I are bringing you over 27 years of combined expertise in the field of holistic sexual wellness to help you integrate your body, mind, spirit, and sex.
New episodes drop every Thursday morning, so make sure to like and subscribe on all your favorite listening platforms. And make sure you follow Holistic Sexology Institute on Instagram, TikTok, and YouTube for your daily dose of Sex is Medicine. Now let's get started.
Hello and welcome back to Sex is Medicine. I am your host, Davy Ward Erickson.
And I am Alaina Folx.
And we are so delighted to be back with you this week. We hope that you have been loving these episodes. We've been getting lots of comments, lots of good news, lots of good words, and we are once again just so honored, so delighted, so grateful to be back. You know, it was wild. Alaina and I were talking like last week as we were organizing stuff for the launch. And I was looking on my computer and I was searching sex is medicine in my desktop, and I came up with this whole map, this whole path of us relaunching Sex is Medicine in September of 2023. So Alaina, you and I, we had already planned to do this. We had recording dates scheduled for March of 2023. Like, you flew to Canada and we like recorded a bunch of content, and we were gonna like re-record Sex is Medicine episodes and relaunch Sex is Medicine September of 2023. But then my house burned down and here we are today. So we just had to like press pause on it for 2 years.
Yeah, and I can't believe that your house burning, like, not only did we stop, but it obliterated it from our memory. Like, neither you or I even remembered that we were going to do this back then as well.
I
So,
mean, I completely forgot. We launched a whole other podcast, Tantra Talks, and our social media person was like, "Why the fuck are we launching a whole new podcast?" That was for Lamatashi, though. We had to do a podcast just with Lamatashi. We had to do that. So that's Tantra Talks. Our Tantra Talks are Lamatashi influenced Tantra Talks, which you can still hear on Spotify. So make sure you like and subscribe. All right. So today we are going to be answering one of your questions. This is why your questions are so important. We are doing an entire episode to answer one question that one of y'all sent to us on Instagram, our Instagram account. We're still at Authentic Tantra. We hope that changes, but you can search us at Institute of Holistic Sexology on Instagram. Everywhere else, let us change our names, but Instagram's like, no, you have to be Authentic Tantra forever. And we're like, no, please let us go. Anyway, on Instagram, someone sent us a question asking about, can you practice Tantra? Can two women practice Tantra? Can you practice Tantra as a same-sex couple? And we're here to say absolutely, of course, of course, of course, of course. But we want to make some very specific distinctions in regards to what we're referring to as Tantra and how that relates to Tantra for same-sex couples. Excuse my Chihuahua, who is a monster, who you can probably hear barking in the background, attacking random people in the background. That's my Chihuahua. Okay, so but before we dive into that, Alaina she's gonna lead our hot topic portion for today. So okay, Alaina, you're on.
yes, thank you, Davey. So we picked a hot topic portion that we thought would be really tie into our topic of the day. We've came across this influencer online. He's a really prominent sex education influencer who really leans in the Neo-Tantra realm. And he was asked this question, is it the man's fault if there is a sexless relationship? So we're going to just play that clip for you first.
Couple is in a sexless relationship. Whose fault is it? The man's. Why? Because he has not created enough polarity. He has not created enough dominance. He has not created enough surrender. He has not created enough trust. He's not put in enough effort to make sure that his woman can unfurl and surrender to his masculine pull. The reality is, a lot of times when you're in a long-term relationship, things get stale, couples get complacent, men stop working as hard. And if a woman's withholding from you guys, it's not her fault. It's your responsibility to actually change your energetic frequency with time, effort, and patience so that she will then open up to you. Yes, it takes effort. Yes, it requires discipline. Yes, yet she may not open up at first. And you need to recognize that that's just a reality of life.
So I want to just pause there. It does go on for a little bit longer. He talks a little bit about with some good things about paying attention to women's sexual response and how it's responsive desire. But I want to just pause us there because it's a long clip to get our first opinions. Davey, do you want to start us off?
Yeah, okay. So like you said, there is some truth to what he's saying. Like trust is really important. And then for we who identify, this is for cisgender women, typically that's who his audience he's talking to, cisgender men and cisgender women in a heterosexual relationship dynamic. That's what we're talking about. So in that type of relationship dynamic, yeah, traditionally, yes, it's important for me as a woman to feel supported and to have my needs for trust and and honoring and all that met. The issue for me is that like this conversation about you have to be more rooted in your masculine for her to want to be magnetized. Look, I will be magnetized to you when you do the dishes without me having to fucking ask you to do the dishes. I will be, if you want me to like feel more supported and to what open and blossom to you, then stop leaving piles of your shit all over the house and making me be your mother to ask you to pick them up. So like one of the biggest things that makes my yoni dry up like a fucking raisin, I'm gonna cuss for this, but like seriously, is when I have to be your mommy. When I have to be your mommy. And I don't know if this is specific to like Gen X men specifically. And I'm going to also say Gen X white men because, I'm biracial. So you are always going to get racial dynamics in this conversation because I have to fucking live them. So if I have to live them, then you get to hear about them, right? So I will say that growing up, when my black boyfriends like I black mamas will keep their house in shape, and my black boyfriends did not need to be told that they needed to do the dishes, vacuum the carpet, da da da. Like I would come over to their houses and they would be absolutely spotless, impeccable. And my boyfriends would be like, "Well, I'll call you back after I've vacuumed and done the dishes and whatever." So I have never had an issue when I have been with black men. I have never had an issue with them leaving piles of their shit around the house. It has never been an issue. So I'm not saying that black men can't be messy too. I'm just telling you my dating experience, right? But with white Gen X men, I am forever following you around, asking you to like being your mommy. Okay, so the number one thing, it's not about you being more masculine, or maybe it is. It's about you being a 50-year-old man and not a 14-year-old boy. So let's start there. So if your version of masculinity does not include vacuuming, doing the fucking laundry without me asking you to do the laundry, folding the laundry after I've done it, like cleaning the toilet bowl, like basic shit without me having to ask you to do it. Book the house cleaner. If you don't want to do it, book the house cleaner then. Like basic daily domestic stuff really, really, really meets needs for support. And this isn't just me. This is like there's articles, there's about this, about like what is it called? Weaponized incompetence. There's articles about Sabrina Carpenter just released a whole ass album about man child and like, can you just clean up your fucking shit? So your boomer mamas did not do justice. They have fucked us all up. I'm just saying it's a boomer mom thing. I watch this up close and personal because I'm married to a white man with a boomer mom. So I get to see how this shit plays out, and it's definitely your conditioning. So if you really want her vagina to be an overflowing like nectar waterfall kind of thing, clean up your shit. That is how you need to get your pole erect. That is the pole that you need to like anchor into, is clean up your shit without me having to ask. All right, that's my rant. Full of cussing. Sorry, y'all. Just bleep it out if you have to.
Yeah, those are really good insights, Davey, especially because A, right, I hear you saying that it doesn't meet your needs for respect, right? And uh help support those things, right? So that fosters an environment where you might have feelings of anger or resentment towards your partner, and those are not good for connection and intimacy. But in addition to that, there's also this labor component, both your actual labor and your invisible labor, which is going to increase stress for the person who's doing all of that. And we know physiologically that stress is a libido killer and a pleasure killer for most people. So that's another huge component of it. It's not just about how you're feeling in your brain about the other person. It's also about whether your body is able to relax into a response, which he does talk a little bit about that with responsive behavior, but he doesn't talk about the stress. Right now, we're talking about the stress component of that.
Well,
So
but the thing is he's focusing on like you have to be more rooted in your masculine and what these like these archaic, I'm gonna say archaic concepts of what masculine is. So like yeah, like boomer moms made sure their boys, their Gen X boys, were rooted in masculinity, which causes them to not lift a fucking finger, to help their female partners around the house. Now, I am going to say Dr. Erickson and I have worked through this in counseling for many years, so we are no longer in this place. So the heat that you are feeling from me is not present time shit. We have worked through this in counseling, but I'm just saying, his mama could have saved us a lot of money in counseling. I'm just saying. But this concept of like rooting into your masculine pole, when you hear that, guys and ladies, when you hear like, oh, I want him to be rooted in his masculine pole, are you thinking about him vacuuming the house? No, no, because that's woman's work. So what I'm saying to you is your concepts, when we're talking about these kind of like gross concepts of polarity, these concepts of polarity, which are based on these like traditional gender roles. When
yep.
we're thinking about that, like the actual thing that you need to be rooted in is equity, is shared relationship dynamic, shared
Mhm.
mutuality. Because I'll tell you, like, it turns me on when my husband, when he does the dishes and cleans up the kitchen and remembers to put the dog food away. I'm like, and when he makes me coffee in the morning, oh my God, that gets me so wet. Like these acts of service really meet my needs for support. And when I feel supported as a badass, powerful tantric witch dakini in the world, when I feel supported, that is what gives me the space to melt. That's
Mhm.
what gives me the space to surrender, is when I got you. Well, I know you got me because of what you did. I don't care what you say. I care what you do, and I want to see what you do to support me. I don't want to have to guess. I want to walk out and be like, "Oh, damn. He arranged all the pillows. What a beautiful tantric temple." I didn't have to do it myself. Anything I don't have to do myself, I'm going to feel supported when you do it, so I don't have to do it. When I don't have to think about it, woo, that meets my needs for support. And when my needs for support are met, all of the stress starts to decompress. And when the stress decompresses, my libido arises. And I mean, we're off to the races, my friends. So there we go.
Beautiful. Beautiful. I have a couple more thoughts about it that I
Okay,
want to
okay.
share.
Go on.
So, I think the thing that I initially found most disturbing about this video was that he's really distilling relationships down to stereotypes, right?
Yes.
And that's the thing that I find disturbing about the polarity conversation. Just like you said a minute ago, it distills the person down to specific set gender norms that are created, within the context of our dysfunctional system, right? Our white, uh, patriarchal classist system, like our gender roles fit within that. So I, I mean, it's entirely possible that there are people who have done lots of self-examining and they really want to fit into these traditional, masculine, feminine stereotypes for their relationship. Cool, have at it. Great for you. But I don't think that's the majority of people, right? There's a lot of people who have all kinds of different dynamics within their relationship. And one of the first thing that came to mind for me was he said, oh gosh, he said a number of things, but one of the words that's jumped out at me was this concept of dominance, which, yeah, a lot of cis women do want to be dominated. That's a common fantasy, a common kink for many women. But there's a lot of women who want to dominate. And there's a lot of men who want a dominant woman as well, as their preferred way of engaging with power in their relationships. So it's not that simple as just like you're not being masculine enough in order to let her open, right? In most cases.
Well, and the concept of
Additionally,
what masculinity is, I'm interrupting you, masculine,
good.
and the concept of what masculinity is, that's the thing. Are you being masculine? It depends on what your version of masculinity is. Like my
Right.
version of masculinity could be playing the piano and, fucking writing poetry. Like maybe that's what I think a real man is, quote unquote. So it all goes into like a very specific demographics idea of what is masculine. MAGA masculine, shall we say.
Yeah, yeah, exactly. And those many of those stereotypes for many people are violent, right? They
Yes.
don't support their true connection, their ability to really be fully present, especially for men, to be fully present in their emotions and be fully present in their emotions with their partner as well, which is another factor in being able to connect in order to have a great sex life, right? So, I, yeah, and then like on the feminine side, there's this societal standard for us in that stereotype that women can't know about their sexuality, right? You talk about this in your book, Shake Your Soul Song, this Walt Disney syndrome, where, good girls don't know about their sex and don't know how to please themselves or enjoy sex in the bedroom. It's all up to the man, whereas women who do, they're just sluts and whores and, so we can't fuck with them. So it plays into that, which is violent for both parties, right?
Mhm.
Do you have anything else to say about that?
Nope, nope, nope. Right on point, sister. Tell it.
The other thing that really jumped out at me is Jesus Christ, both people in a relationship are responsible for the relationship.
Yeah.
It's toxic to assign one person or another person, specific aspects of a relationship. Again, there can be agreements within a relationship, right? So like one person might agree to be more responsible in this way or that way, but it's not appropriate to just assign people their responsibilities based off of their sex or gender as well. And even if you do, it's still both people's responsibility to care and tender for their relationship. And your sexuality in a sexual relationship is a primary factor in the reason you're in a relationship with that person. So both of you need to be engaged in that and having conversations with that. And it also links into how few people in this country have learned how to communicate about their sexuality and communicate with their partner about their sexuality and about what's going on for them and to troubleshoot.
Yeah. Yeah. And I would say, I would add to that everything you said, 100% on point on and on point. And I would also say what arises for me is like rather than looking at the polarity of your relationship, look at the health of your relationship. Is your relationship healthy and functional? Because
Mhm.
I was telling Alaina before we started recording, the people that I've encountered in the field over 17 years who are the most focused on these polarity dynamics are also have the most propensity for gaslighting and predatory behavior. I'm just gonna say, and the schools for tantra schools that I've encountered, or tantra teachers that I've encountered that are really into this, polarity thing. Polarity has nothing to do with actual tantra, lineage-based tantra. I mean, go Google polarity and like real tantra. It doesn't fucking exist. It's totally a neo-tantra concept. And as we've said, neo-tantra is a result of colonization and violence. And so it carries that. It carries the violence of colonization within it. And so again, when it comes to polarity, there's no real authentic tantric teachings on fucking polarity. And the neo tantra teachers on polarity, honestly, what I've seen is there's a propensity, as I've said, for gaslighting, psychological abuse, and predatory behavior. Or there's complaints against the teachers or the schools for predatory behavior. So I mean, you know, actual tantra focuses on union and balance. That's what it focuses on. It focuses on union, uniting duality, transforming the concept of duality by recognizing the inherent union of all expressions of life. And it focuses on balance. We all, as human beings, have masculine and feminine. In fact, we've got masculine channels and feminine channels in the body. And the important thing is for them to be balanced. That's the point of your tantra yoga practice. When you're doing energy body yoga, you are balancing your energy bodies. So sometimes your masculine channels need more energy, or sometimes your feminine channels need more energy, or maybe your whole freaking energy body needs more energy, right? It's not about this dualistic dynamic. That's another thing about why it's not real tantra, because real tantra is about dismantling duality, not reinforcing it. And this whole
Mhm.
conversation about polarity is reinforcing concepts of duality. I mean, and then this brings us to the topic that we're going to talk about today, which is, can you practice tantra as a same-sex couple? So, of course. So, I'm going to circle back to that in a moment of the of course why, but what I want to point to right now is like historically Tantric Buddhism was about transforming rigid concepts of rigid structures of hierarchy and rigid structures of patriarchy and male versus female and duality and even heterosexuality. There's historical record in Tantric Buddhism of non-binary and trans people, and they were referred to as Pandikas or Pandikas, wherever you put that emphasis. And so these were considered to be shamans. These were considered to be like potent, powerful, kind of magical beings that had both, that weren't necessarily masculine or feminine, but were a beautiful fusion of both. And so they were viewed as like precious and rare and like, again, like unicorns, so to speak, because they walked in all worlds, right? So that is a historical reference in Tantric Buddhism to the celebration and the upliftment of intersex, non-binary, trans, and even homosexual individuals. People who did not fit into the rigid binary roles were considered fucking magic.
Wow, that's beautiful.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah. So when it comes to tantra for same-sex people, something that causes a lot of confusion that Alaina is going to talk about in just a moment is this concept of polarity, of these rigid, masculine, feminine. So that leaves a lot of people out of the conversation who don't fit in. And that fucking kills me, because you know what? You're not supposed to fit in. Real tantra, those of us that don't fit in, we're the magic sauce. Tantra was not fucking mainstream. Tantric Buddhism was not mainstream. It was underground. It was subversive. It was transgressive. It was fucking revolutionary. The Tantric Buddhists were not the people at the top of the food chain. They weren't the fucking Brahmins. They were the underground. They were the outcasts. They were the untouchables, many of them. So that is the roots of Tantric Buddhism. So when it comes to you as a non-normative, heteronormative, and non-cisgender person looking at Tantra and Neo-Tantra and feeling unincluded, you're right. You're right. But real Tantra does include you. Real Tantra actually fucking celebrates you. Okay.
Okay. Thank you, Davy. That's beautiful. Yeah, and you talked a lot about what I was going to talk about, which is this concept of polarity in Neo-Tantra, that's so prevalent in that community, and that can cause real pain and suffering for a large portion of the population, both, as you said, same-sex couples, who are gender diverse, and again, it also is violent to people who are cis as well, because it puts those in those specific gender roles, right? And as you were talking about, like, it doesn't really have anything to do with real tantra. So you're probably going to go more into this, but in our lineage of practice, we define tantra as weaving light with sound and form, right? That is the tantra that we do. It is energy work, right? And everything else that we teach is to go along with that energy work. It's not the tantra. The tantra is the energy work itself. So we weave light and sound with form, the light being our visualization, the sound being mantric syllable, the form being our bodies, right? And I think in this instance, the person may be talking more about the sexual practices, because they are specifically often linked to the concept of Tantra, especially in Neo-Tantra. But that in and of itself is not Tantra. So Tantra is for anyone, right? You can 100% learn this energy body yoga, learn it, synthesize it, and receive profound healing from it. And also, the sexual teachings that we offer are also for everyone. So there really isn't a hierarchy or a differentiation between, practicing it as an individual, practicing it in a cis het couple, or practicing it in a homosexual couple, or any other conglomeration of queer coupledom.
And so because Alaina and I actually are practice under the umbrella of lineage and have a root lama and do actually practice authentic lineage-based Tibetan Buddhist Tantra, we approach Tantra, as she was saying, from a perspective of there being sexual Tantra and non-sexual Tantra, right? There's both. And basically when it comes to sexual Tantra, when you're practicing real Tantra and not just, sexual healing methods, essentially, when you're practicing real Tantra, real sexual Tantra, authentic sexual Tantra, what you are doing is applying your non-sexual practice, your non-sexual energy body yoga practice to your sexual activity. The beautiful thing about cultivating non-sexual Tantra practice is you very quickly begin to realize that you can make any activity tantric by your attention, your intention, your focus, and your awareness. No matter what you're doing, it can become a tantric practice, because real authentic Tantra is an internal practice. It's something we're doing internally with our awareness, with our attention, with our focus, with our mantra, with our chanting, with our breath. You can practice Tantra walking. You can practice Tantra doing the dishes. You can practice Tantra making sweet love with your partner. You can practice Tantra when you're pooping. In fact, we have a video I think on our YouTube channel and maybe our Instagram channel. I think it got taken down Instagram. We can post it again, but it's definitely on YouTube because I was watching it the other day. You can practice Tantra while pooping. You can chant mantra and do energy body yoga while you're sitting on the toilet pooping. And in fact, that it was an instruction from my Lama. So there's not one moment when you are practicing authentic Tantra, not one moment is wasted. Not one moment of your human experience is wasted. You can practice Tantra with every breath if you want to. And at a certain point, you get to a point where everything you do is your Tantra practice, whether you're intentionally doing it or whether you're living it as an embodied experience. Everything that you do becomes Tantra. There's no separation between your Tantra and your life. So that's the goal of practice, so that you can actually leave practice away. Leave your practice behind. The analogy is like, if you're crossing a river, you need a raft to cross the river. It's a tool, but once you get to the other side of the river, you're not going to carry your raft with you, right? Well, that's the Dharma. That's Tantra practice, is that you use it to get to a certain point, and then when you are actually firmly anchored in that level of realization, you don't need to continue carrying it with you. Or maybe you just actually carry one stick. You change the shape of the raft and turn it into a walking stick to help your journey now, to help this leg of your journey, right? So it changes. Your relationship to the actual practice changes as your realization as a result of your practice evolves and changes and grows. So we're talking about Tantra for same-sex people. That's a lot. So here we go. So the non-sexual, I think we sufficiently answered yes. The non-sexual yoga practice, as long as you are human and you have attention and the desire and the intention, you can practice non-sexual Tantra. Can you, as a same-sex couple, apply your non-sexual Tantra yoga practice to your sexuality? Absolutely, of course. Why would it be any different for you than anybody else? Of course you can. You're a human being. Your genitals are irrelevant when it comes to Tantra. I mean, they're relevant because you want to know how to make them work. how to make them cream, I'm going to say. I don't know. I was thinking of Princess Song, right? how to make them generate the nectar that they're designed to generate. So they're important that way, but they're irrelevant in terms of like, they're just different parts, like of course you can apply your non-sexual practice to your sexual practice. And are there specific methods, sexual methods for same-sex people? Yes, actually there are. To take a minute and think for a moment. Yes, actually, there are differences if you are in the same-sex couple as with lotus, which is we're going to say vagina or vulva and vagina. We're going to reference as lotus. And then if you're in a same-sex couple with a vajra, a divine thunderbolt of wisdom, or otherwise known as a penis, but I prefer divine thunderbolt of wisdom. And I would guess y'all do too with your divine thunderbolt of wisdom. Yes, you are going to run the energy body yoga slightly differently when you are when you are partnered with the same sex. And when we do our tantra couples, our tantra coaching for couples, tantra healing for couples program in 2026, that will be open for heterosexual and same-sex couples, and so we'll give those instructions during class, like the differences in the energy body yoga depending on if you're playing with the same puzzle pieces or opposite puzzle pieces. Yeah. Okay, I went on forever. Did you want to add anything to that, Alaina?
Not at the moment. I'm sorry.
Está bien, está muy bien, todo bien, todo bien. Okay, so why don't I go into Tantra? So because I have experience, not only am I biracial, I am bisexual. I have all the bis. I have foots in many worlds, many different worlds. And so I have had Tantra with other Lotus owners. I fucking love it. That's one of my favorite things, is Tantra with another Lotus owner. And so I'll share a little bit about my experience in terms of how the adjustments that occur naturally as a result, and how the energy flows. So when it came for me to practice tantra with women, with other women, sexual tantra, we're saying, so we do the same, some of the same practices as like, looking into each other's eyes and harmonizing the breath. So when two or more people breathe together at the same rate, the same pace, their heartbeats synchronize, brain waves synchronize. I'm a big fan of having my heartbeat synchronized and my brain waves synchronized before I try to synchronize my genitals. I'm just saying, I'm very much a top-down person when it comes to that, or a heart-down person when it comes to that. And then when it comes to the yogic breathing practices, yep, energy flows. And and absolutely, for anyone who's bisexual, those of us who are bisexual, and I happen to believe that if we removed, or if our cultural conditioning looked a different way than it does today, I'm a believer that I would say I truly believe that at least 80% of the population is bisexual. I really feel like bisexuality is normal. I do. It's like, I mean, if you think of when you're children don't, they play with each other's genitals. They look at their own genitals. Like, I mean, anyway, that's my personal opinion. I know, and I've seen it elsewhere, but I just can't remember where.
Yeah, I think many sex educators believe that people fall on a spectrum, right? I think Kinsey was the first person to talk about that spectrum when he invented the Kinsey scale, at least in the United States. So yeah.
Yeah, and I love that. I love that idea of a scale. I'm not a big fan of Kinsey myself, bless his heart, but bless their heart, whatever. But I do love the idea of a scale because, and I would also say in terms of the scale, like that's not static, because there's certain times in our life that we may be more inclined one way or the other. Like the lifetimes that I've lived just in the last 2 years, the last 50 years, like I'm not the same person 50 years later that I was, before. So I will say that my sexual orientation, or I would say my sexual movement in the world, not necessarily my orientation, but how I choose to move in the world sexually, has evolved tremendously. And I've been more inclined towards, homosexuality, and more inclined towards heterosexuality at different points in my life, but definitely fluid in that term. So speaking from my experience practicing tantra with many women, I mean, for those of us, as I was going to say, who are bisexual, there's a difference in the way the energy flows when you're playing with somebody who has the same genital anatomy. Like there is a different quality, and which is part of why we do that. It's a different flavor of food, so to speak. It's a different taste, different flavor. Just like with every person we engage with sexually, there is a difference based on your sexual anatomy. Absolutely. A different quality and a different energetic exchange. And what I found really notable is over time, so when I was predominantly in relationship, having sexual intimacy with women predominantly, So like 80 to 90% of my sex was happening with another yoni owner, another lotus owner, another woman. The channels in my energy body actually adapted to accommodate that. So when I'm having, and this, I haven't had an opportunity to gauge this on other people's bodies. So maybe we can do a study of, tracking energy channels and seeing how they line up and seeing how they shift and change when we're making love with different people. But when I was having sex predominantly with Vajras, with men, my channels in my, like my downward voiding wind channels and my channels in my lower end were pointed predominantly downward to meet the penetration, right? So the channels like coming down my cervix and just like in my whole lower area. And I'm not talking about the nerve pathways. I'm talking about channels, my energy channels. So the energy channels can move and change and adapt to meet the needs to help us digest and metabolize the energy that we're receiving from our environment more effectively. And so when I was having sex with heterosexual men, a lot, or my number one food source, shall we say, my energy channels were pointing downwards to accommodate the penetration. When I was predominantly having sex as women, with women as my predominant food source for sex, my channels actually shifted so that they were pointing out, like towards the anterior of my body. So no longer downward, but more anterior in order to receive more of a full whole body exchange as opposed to just the exchange from the lingam. So that was very interesting because it definitely changed the quality of my orgasm, and it definitely changed the quality of my sexual experience, because it was moving through like different channels of the energy body. And then, when I was no longer having sex as often with women, the channels, and I'm predominantly monogamous in a heterosexual dynamic, my channels are all, pointing downward to receive my partner again, my male partner again. So that was my experience of kind of shifting with the energy channels and how they will adapt to, or can adapt um to to receive the love, essentially the medicine, the food. Because sex is food, sex is nourishment, right? To receive the nourishment that we're receiving from our partners, regardless of how that energy is being put into our bodies, whether it's be it through physical penetration or surface activity or just a different kind of penetration. Because I was still being penetrated, but I just wasn't being penetrated by a penis. When I was with women, I will say I was still being penetrated, just not with a penis. I was being penetrated with other things. Anyway, so that's a lot. So, okay, what do you think about that, Alaina?
I think that's beautiful. And in addition to that, I'll say that, so the sexual practices that we teach that are often uh, linked to Tantra but aren't necessarily Tantra, those are also applicable in same-sex female couples. So things like tantric union breathing, sexual communication practices, yoni massage, partner orgasmic awareness practice. These are all things we teach that are beautiful, connective, pleasure expanding, juicy couple practices. And your genital makeup has nothing to do with whether you can practice them or not.
And what we love to do is give you information, educate you about your genital makeup, like whether you have a lotus or a lingam or a combination. Like the more we know about how our genitals function, the better they can function. Just like the more you know about what's under the hood of the car, you're going to be able to make that car work a lot better. Same, same, same. So your genitals are important in terms of understanding how they function for optimal performance, shall we say. And I don't mean, performance in a bad way, but just to, optimally bring you bliss, because you're designed for bliss. Your body is designed for pleasure. That's just a fact. Like pleasure is our compass. It's our guidance system. If it feels good, we want to move towards it. If it hurts, we want to avoid it. That's what fucking kept us alive for millennia, right? A very simplified version of that. But your genitals are built for pleasure. So understanding how they function to bring you and your partner the most pleasure is really important education. And just want to reiterate again that we are going to be, so if you're thinking, well, how can I learn all this awesomeness? Well, guess what? In February of 2026, we're going to open registration for a Tantra for couples. I think we're calling it Cultivating Sacred Intimacy, Tantra Healing for Couples program that myself and Dr. Erickson and Alaina and maybe her partner are going to be teaching you. So registration for that is going to open in February of 2026. So make sure you are at holisticsexologyinstitute.com and signing up for notifications. If you just sign up for your Sex is Medicine podcast weekly doses in your inbox every day, you will get notifications of any of our programs. But we are going to be teaching a Tantra Healing for Couples program in 2026. Registration opens February. Fingers crossed. You know, we were going to do that before the house burned, week before the house burned down. No, a week after. We were going to open registration. We're going to open registration for the Tantra Healing for Couples. So we had to do it from Costa Rica, y'all. We had to do it from Costa Rica.
Okay, are we ready to talk about men?
Yes, let's talk about, so we're going to talk about you men, you cisgender men, and your beautiful, beautiful lingams, and you and same-sex practicing Tantra as a same-sex couple, because y'all get left out of this conversation. You do. And we want you to know that we see you and we celebrate you, and you are a beautiful, 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 beautiful expression of life. So go on, Alaina. Give it to them.
Yes. Thank you so much, Davy. So I have trained a number of queer men and queer people who have lingams and penises in my time as a Tantra teacher and educator. And yeah, Tantra is absolutely applicable to people who have penises in a same-sex relationship as well. So just starting again with talking about the energy body yoga of Tantra, you know, I think what I really like to presence is that the tantric practices are heart-centered practices. So when we're doing this energy body yoga, we're always beginning and ending in the heart, right? Which really deepens our connection to ourself, and when practiced in partnership, deepens our connection to our partner as well, which is just, you can't go wrong with that, right? Like this is the gold standard for relationships, when your hearts are purely beautifully connected to one another. And yeah, when we do that, our relationships get better. We communicate more clearly. We give each other more grace. We heal our wounds. And especially for men who have been socialized in, men or people with penises who've been socialized in this country, one of the first things that happens to them is they are separated from their connection. They are separated, they're severed violently from their emotions, and they're not allowed to feel their emotions. And this gets in the way of connecting deeply with others and in their partnerships as well. So when we, refocus both with these energy body practices and these sexual or connection-based practices, we're giving ourselves, they're getting the opportunity to heal that connection wound, and to rediscover it, right? To rediscover that connection and that emotional literacy and what's what I'm looking, vulnerability. Thank you.
Yeah. And I
Yeah.
love that you brought it back to Tantra is about a heart-to-heart connection. That is what sexual Tantra is rooted in. It's what all Tantra is rooted in, but particularly sexual Tantra is having that loving, open, present, spacious connection with one another. So that's the key. That's both the goal, that's both the practice and the goal.
Yeah. Yeah. And in terms of sticking with the energy body and kind of going along the lines of what you were talking about, Davy, there are some differences about how, um, you know, men who are in same-sex union, how their energy channel would relate to one another. So when we're placing our central channel in this tradition, it runs through the center of the body, in front of the spine, from the soft spot on the top of the head, and it ends in the perineum. So what we often talk about is, when people are in heterosexual union, there's an offshoot of the central channel that goes through the penis to the tip of the lingam, and there's an offshoot of the central channel that goes from the central channel into the cervix. So when people are in union in a heterosexual couple, we've got that direct connection between the two central channels. So you're kind of connecting and having this little bit of a merge with each other's energy bodies, right? And when we're doing this in with men in same-sex couples, the same thing happens. It's just slightly altered, right? So in that case, if two men are having anal sex, there's an offshoot. You can access the central channel through the anus itself. And of course, there's still a central channel offshoot through the penis. So they're having that same level of connection. They're just coming at it from a different point in the body.
And the anus or the rectum is where the downward voiding winds arise. Okay, pardon my chihuahua if you can hear him in the background. I'm not sure if you can. I can hear him. He's driving me crazy. Um, but the downward voiding winds actually arise in the rectum. And so this is one of the reasons that anal pleasure is so profoundly important for all anus owners, which is all humans. Anus owners, but for all of us, is having anal pleasure can help remove and dissolve any obstacles in the downward voiding winds, allowing those downward voiding winds to rebalance. It can improve your bowel function, having anal massage and anal pleasure. So your anus is the second highest concentration of pleasure sensitive nerve endings, if there is such a thing, and also two, it's also the home of where the downward voiding winds arise in the body. And so it's a very important energy center to pay attention to.
Yeah, yeah. And to build off of that, because when we define orgasm in our tradition, from the energy body perspective, we talk about it being this moment where our downward voiding winds brush the central channel. So you're also going to be expanding your capacity to experience different kinds of orgasms when you're keeping up with the health of your downward voiding winds.
Yep, absolutely.
Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah.
So that's the energy body component. So talking about some of the methods that are often thought of as Tantra, but aren't necessarily Tantra, but go along with everything we're doing. There are also some other things that are of great benefit to men in same-sex relationships. So just like with women that we just talked about, things like tantric union breathing and sexual communication. In this case, lingam massage and couples OAP. These are all beautiful practices which have no need for specific genital makeup. Additionally, men who are tantric often engage in semen retention practices as well, and this is good for cis men as well as homosexual or queer men. Uh, I think one of the main distinctions I want to make here, and the reason we're bringing it up, is because semen retention is often framed for men as a way to last longer for her, right? So that's a very prominent way that people market semen retention. And so sometimes, queer men and people with penises feel really left out of that conversation. Like, why would I practice this if this is just for lasting longer for a female partner, right? But there are many other benefits to semen retention that have nothing to do with that. So there's increased vitality. So you're retaining chi when you're retaining your semen. So you're retaining that juicy, vital essence, which is going to improve your health and your well-being just overall. There's also been some studies that indicate that as you retain your semen, that increases your testosterone, some of your androgens in the body, those hormones. And then it also helps you to, what am I trying to say here? Semen retention also helps you with your cultivation of multiple orgasms as well. So if you didn't know this, men and people with penises, they can have more orgasms than just an ejaculatory orgasm. They have a huge breadth of orgasmic capacity, different juicy flavors that come from different parts of their body and are expressed differently, right? And semen retention is one of the kind of like one of the portals to getting there for many men. So that's a definite benefit for all men. And then it's also really wonderful for them to learn how to slow down and connect to their pleasure and to connect to their partner during their sexual practice as well.
Mm-hmm. Beautiful. I mean, the thing is Tantra is like real Tantra, authentic lineage-based Tantra is for humans. It's for humans. It's for humans to help us have a better human existence, a better human experience. And yes, to realize enlightenment, but not at the expense of our humanity, right? That's the thing. As I realize more and more Mahamudra consciousness, like just open void, spacious awareness in my, you know, in my awareness, in my consciousness, like the goal that like enlightenment is not divorcing ourselves from our humanity. Enlightenment is about being fully human and being internally free, internally liberated from suffering. And we are often our own worst enemies, as this culture conditions us to be, and those of us with CPTSD are definitely our worst enemies, right? So tantra, the tantric enlightenment is about ending suffering, ceasing suffering for all humans and all beings ultimately, but particularly for all humans. So for you, in regardless of what or relationship orientation, how you find love, regardless of who, with whom and how you find love, it's your birthright. It's your birthright to know how to heal. It's your birthright to understand your energy body. If you're attracted to that and drawn to that, it's your birthright to understand how your energy body feeds and nourishes your physical body, and how you can use connection and pleasure to increase the energy in your body and to heal and transform. So, yeah, so hold on one second. I'm going to pause this. Yes.
So the other thing that I wanted to mention about tantric practices is the way that our specific orientation to the practice is performed. It really creates a situation where we're allowed to process a lot of trauma from our bodies, right? Trauma, judgments, all these nasty things that get stuck in ourselves, right? And the way that we practice, we have this beautiful meshing of the energy body work of the five elements with our sexual practices, but also our somatic practices, right? So somatic regular practices, but also somatic sexual healing practices. And those two practices together, I find, create kind of like a bridge inside the body, right? Because we're working on all of the blocks or obscurations or breaks in our energy body from the inside out when we're working in our central channel with elements. So we're healing that way. And then when we're applying the somatic sexual healing principles, we're working essentially from the outside in to release trauma where it lives in the body. So that specific orientation allows us to do so much in terms of moving towards health and well-being. And, I just think about all of the ways that it has helped our students over the years transform judgments that they've had about themselves. And so I think a lot about like transforming judgment one might have about being queer, right? Like internalized homophobia, transforming that in oneself, or judgments one might feel about engaging in anal sex, or yeah, just all of the trappings of of our that our culture puts upon queer people. That's something else that can be helped and transformed through a tantric practice.
Yes, thank you for that. That's so beautiful. Yeah, because our culture teaches us, if we don't fit into these very narrow boxes, teaches us to hate ourselves, that there's something
Yeah.
wrong with us, that we're deficient, that we're queer. I mean, even I don't use the word queer because when I was coming up into early adulthood, like in the 90s, right? I graduated high school in 92 and I started like going to gay bars. I hit 18 at like 93, 94, something like that. Graduated from high school early. And I was, go to gay bars and hang out with the gay folks. And like, we didn't call ourselves queer because queer was a slur. That was a bad word. It was like gay was like, that was a happy thing. Right. So for me, the word queer is still like carries the weight of that shame because it was a curse word. It was a cuss word when I was, coming up in the day. So it wasn't the word of liberation that it is now, 20 years later, 25 years later. So yeah, like that's such a beautiful point. Is like that's the thing about tantra, as we said to begin with. It's not about reinforcing polarities and opposites and duality. It's about finding that point of union and also creating balance where there's imbalance, because that's the key to wellness is balance. And so if we are holding on to this distorted concept of self that we are somehow wrong and bad because we don't fit into the MAGA box, so to speak, that is an imbalance. That's an imbalance in our psyche, and that is part of this purification and this healing that can occur through authentic lineage-based tantra, which we are still teaching, y'all. We're just not certifying in it, but we are still teaching it, and we have, oh my God, so many incredible certified practitioners that you can choose from. You can see them on our website, holisticsexology.com. We're very proud of everybody who has achieved their certification because it was no joke. And we are still teaching these methods. Alaina and I are still laying it down, and our instructors are still laying it down for your personal healing. We're not going to take that away from you. Yeah, yay. So I think the last thing I want to say on this topic before we close out is I just want to say that for those of us who don't fit in the box, and for those of you who do identify as queer, trans, non-binary, homosexual, however you identify, I am sorry that you have not found a home in Neo-Tantra, but let's also just recognize that once again that the roots of Neo-Tantra are rooted in colonialism, and there isn't space for us in colonialism. They tried to fucking wipe us out, right? So I'm just saying. So that's why. Know where it comes from. But there is space for you in authentic lineage-based tantra, not just our tantra, but tantra in general. There is space for you in real tantra, because real tantra is for humans. It's for human beings to actualize their full human potential, which is ultimate realization. Yeah. Yeah. All right. Anything else we
Beautiful.
want to say there, Alaina?
No, that was so wonderful and juicy. Thank you so much, Davy.
Thank you, Alaina. Wonder Twin Powers activate. So I'm so grateful and so delighted to be doing this with you. I love the wisdom and the essence and the presence and the potency and the power that you bring. Really, really grateful. I'm grateful to have worked with you for the last, 10 years intimately and intensely and through many, many obstacles. So anyway, that's
I
my
know.
love note for Alaina. Y'all can leave some love notes for Alaina in the comments. Thank you so much for all your comments. Thank you so much for all your comments. I'm going to say it again. Thank you so much for all your comments. We love responding, and thank you. I mean, it uplifts us and brings us so much like encouragement when we know that you like it and we know that we're like serving you up some good delicious food. It makes me want to cook in the kitchen. Makes us want to cook in the kitchen. So thank you for. Oh yeah, Alaina's got one more.
Oh, and do you want to talk about questions at too?
Yeah. So send us your questions. So you can send us your questions at holisticsexologyinstitute.com. That's our new website, holisticsexologyinstitute.com. You can also, if you aren't already on our Instagram page, go to our Instagram page, Institute of Holistic Sexology, and you can DM us questions, or you can leave a question on one of our comments and we'll pick it up. We'll scoop it up. It's best if you DM us questions though, so they don't get missed. We don't want to miss any questions because they're important and they're valuable and we want to answer them for you. So DM us your questions on Instagram. Also send us your questions at holisticsexologyinstitute.com. And we're so excited to answer them. And we'll either answer them on an episode or we'll answer them in an Instagram video. I had a really good one that I did, I think last weekend. We had a beautiful question come in about a transgender woman wanting to know about if practicing semen retention, is a thing. It would be a beneficial for them as they, transition. And so there's a wonderful answer to that question, because these are important things to know, as with different body parts and different orientations, and how is this energy body yoga going to affect you both energetically and physically. We need to know this. We need to know. All right, my friends, thank you so much. We're going to sign out. See you next week. Make sure you like and subscribe, comment, hit the notification bell, all the things. Spotify, iTunes, YouTube. That's where we're at. Instagram. Check us out. Bye.
Bye. You've been listening to Sex is Medicine, your #1 resource for holistic sex education.
Make sure you like and subscribe to Sex is Medicine on all your listening platforms, and follow us on Instagram, YouTube, and TikTok, where you can get your daily dose of Sex is Medicine videos and episode recaps. Also, make sure you register for your weekly dose of Sex is Medicine at holisticsexologyinstitute.com and send us your questions, please, at questions@holisticsexologyinstitute.com. Thank you so much for listening to Sex is medicine.